Running through the crowded lax terminal, I clutched my precious manga portfolio like it was my lifeline. Comic-Con had been a massive success, but now I was paying for staying at that last panel too long. My blonde hair whipped around as I frantically checked my watch, 15 minutes until boarding. "Ma'am, everything needs to go through the scanner," the TSA agent droned, gesturing at my death grip on the portfolio. "But these are original artworks, they're irreplaceable," I protested, knowing I sounded desperate. Just then, my sweaty hands betrayed me. The portfolio slipped, and hundreds of loose sketches scattered across the security checkpoint like confetti. Oh gosh, I dropped to my knees, trying to gather the pages before they got trampled. That's when I saw another pair of hands joining mine, gracefully collecting my artwork. "These are incredible," a soft voice said. I looked up to meet the bluest eyes I'd ever seen, belonging to a brunette who held my latest manga pages with genuine appreciation. The emotion in these characters is so raw. "Thanks," I managed, struck by how her gentle smile seemed to slow time despite my panic. "I'm Genevieve." "Amanda," she replied, helping me to my feet. "Are you on the Bakersfield flight too?" As luck would have it, we weren't just on the same flight, we were assigned adjacent seats. 6 hours next to a stranger would usually be my idea of hell, but Amanda was different. She owned a bookstore, she told me, and her enthusiasm for manga rivaled my own. "So what inspired this character?" she asked, pointing to my protagonist's sketch. Something about her made me want to share my deepest creative secrets. Hours flew by as we discussed storytelling, art, and life dreams. I found myself sketching her profile while she slept briefly, capturing the subtle curve of her lips and the way her hair fell across her face. When she woke and caught me, she blushed, but didn't object. "You made me look beautiful," she whispered, studying the sketch. "I just drew what I saw," I replied, surprising myself with my boldness. As we landed in Bakersfield, reality crashed back. My phone buzzed with messages from the real estate agent, another apartment falling through. I must have looked devastated because Amanda touched my arm gently. "Housing trouble?" she asked. When I nodded, she hesitated for a moment. "You know, I have a spare room. It's nothing fancy, but if you're interested." I stared at her, wondering if fate was real after all. "Are you serious?" "Why not?" She smiled. "Life's too short to let good connections slip away." Standing in the baggage claim, watching her help gather my numerous art supplies, I couldn't shake the feeling that this chance meeting would change everything. Little did I know just how right I was. A week into living with Amanda, I still couldn't believe my luck. My art supplies had colonized half the living room, but she never complained. Instead, she'd bring me coffee during late-night drawing sessions, curious about my creative process. "Your rent's absurdly low," I mentioned one evening, sketching at the kitchen counter while she cooked dinner. The smell of garlic and herbs filled our shared space. "Well, the housing market's insane right now," she shrugged, stirring the pasta. "Besides, having a manga artist as a roommate has its perks. Your imagination makes this place more alive." I watched her move around the kitchen, noting how her hair caught the evening light. My fingers itched to capture that moment on paper. Despite her successful bookstore, Amanda chose to live modestly, preferring to invest in rare first editions and helping local authors. "You're staring again," she teased, not looking up from the stove. "Getting more inspiration?" "Maybe," I admitted, adding another detail to my sketch. "You have interesting movements, very fluid." The domesticity of our arrangement surprised me. We fell into comfortable routines, morning coffee on the balcony, evening discussions about books and art. Amanda's business sense helped me organize my comic submissions better, while I introduced her to obscure manga series she'd never encountered. One night, sorting through my Comic-Con materials, she found preliminary sketches for my new series. "These characters, they're so intimate," she observed, fingers tracing the lines. "You capture longing beautifully." I felt heat rise to my cheeks, wondering if she could see how recent sketches had started featuring characters with her features. "It's about finding connection in unexpected places," I explained. "Like us?" she asked softly, then quickly added, "As roommates, I mean." The moment hung between us, heavy with unspoken possibilities. But before I could respond, her phone rang, her bookstore manager calling about a shipment crisis. Living together revealed Amanda's quirks, her habit of reading in odd positions, how she hummed while organizing books, her tendency to stress bake at midnight, Each detail found its way into my sketchbook, transforming into stories I wasn't ready to tell. "Your art's different lately," my editor commented during a video call. "More emotional depth. Whatever's inspiring you, keep it close." If only she knew how close that inspiration lived, just across the hallway, typically wearing oversized sweaters and reading glasses that kept sliding down her nose. One morning, I found a note on the coffee maker. "Working late tonight. Don't forget to eat dinner. Left lasagna in the fridge." She'd drawn a little heart next to her name, probably without thinking. That simple doodle sent my mind spinning with possibilities I shouldn't consider about my roommate. Later that night, I heard her return, soft footsteps in the hallway. I pretended to be absorbed in my work, but my awareness of her presence had become almost painful. She paused behind me, looking at my latest pages. "Your characters look happy," she murmured, her hand briefly touching my shoulder. "I'm glad you're feeling at home here." Home. The word echoed in my mind as I listened to her get ready for bed. I'd moved in to save money, but something else was growing in this shared space. Something that made my heart race every time she smiled at me over morning coffee. I stayed up late that night, drawing frantically, trying to capture this feeling before it overwhelmed me. Beyond my window, Bakersfield's lights twinkled, and somewhere in this apartment, Amanda slept, unaware she'd become my muse. Living with Amanda became both inspiration and sweet torture. I caught myself studying her daily rituals, the way she'd stretch like a cat after reading for hours, how she'd absently twirl her hair while processing book orders, the adorable scrunch of her nose when tasting something new. My manga pages filled with these moments, transformed but unmistakable to anyone who knew where to look. My editor raved about the authentic slice-of-life details, not knowing they came from watching my roommate dance while making breakfast. "Your character's morning routine is so realistic," Amanda commented one day, reading my latest draft. She sat cross-legged on our couch, early morning light playing in her hair. "Almost familiar." I pretended to focus on my sketching. "Pure coincidence," I lied, adding another line to what was definitely not a drawing of her current pose. Our late-night conversations became my favorite part of each day. She'd bring snacks, usually something she'd stress-baked, and we'd talk until dawn. During one such night, surrounded by her experimental midnight cookies, she confessed something. "I've never told anyone this," she said, hugging her knees. "But I always wanted to write stories too, not just sell them." I watched her face in the dim kitchen light, memorizing the vulnerable look in her eyes. "Show me?" She hesitated, then retrieved a worn notebook from her room. As she read her story aloud, her voice trembling slightly, I sketched. By the time she finished, I had a rough manga adaptation of her tale. "Genevieve, this is..." She trailed off, fingers tracing the lines I'd drawn. Our hands brushed, and neither of us pulled away immediately. The moment broke when her phone buzzed, another crisis at the bookstore, but something had shifted between us. I started finding sticky notes with story ideas slipped under my door, and I'd respond with quick sketches slipped under hers. Our collaborative storytelling became another layer of our increasingly intertwined lives. Then came the night of the thunderstorm. The power went out just as I was finishing a crucial panel. Amanda appeared in my doorway with candles and her emergency wine stash. "Thought you might need company," she said, setting up an impromptu picnic on my studio floor. The storm raged outside, but in the candlelight, everything felt intimate and safe. We sat closer than usual, sharing warmth and wine. I sketched her by candlelight, the flickering shadows making every line feel more meaningful. "You make me look so mysterious," she whispered, leaning over to see the drawing. Her hair brushed my shoulder, sending electricity through my body. "You are mysterious," I replied, voice lower than intended. The candlelight caught the blue of her eyes, making them sparkle. A thunderclap made her jump, and suddenly she was pressed against my side. Neither of us moved away. Her hand found mine in the darkness, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. "Genevieve," she whispered, turning toward me. The candle flames reflected in her eyes, and I could feel her breath on my cheek. The lights chose that moment to flicker back on, harsh reality flooding the room. We jumped apart, laughing nervously, but something had fundamentally changed. That night, lying in bed, I could still feel the phantom warmth of her hand in mine. I grabbed my sketchbook, desperately trying to capture the feeling of almost something that hung in the air between us. In the morning, we moved around each other carefully, both pretending the moment hadn't happened. But I noticed her lingering glances, the way she'd find excuses to be near me. And my art? It practically vibrated with unspoken emotion. My latest manga chapter featured a thunderstorm scene. My editor called it electrically charged with romantic tension. If only she knew. My manga series, Midnight Pages, exploded overnight. What started as private sketches inspired by living with Amanda had resonated with readers in ways I never expected. The protagonist, a bookstore owner with familiar blue eyes and an infectious smile, had captured hearts worldwide. "Your female lead is amazing," my editor gushed during our video call. "So authentic, almost like you're drawing from real life." I glanced guiltily at Amanda's closed door, where I could hear her humming while getting ready for work. "Just good imagination," I muttered. The series followed a bookstore owner and an artist who formed an unexpected connection. Sound familiar? I'd changed enough details to feel safe, but anyone who knew us might recognize the tender moments I'd woven into the story: shared midnight snacks, casual touches, lingering glances. Then came the morning Amanda finally read the latest chapter. I was sketching at the kitchen counter when she emerged from her room, clutching my manga volume with trembling hands. Her face was unreadable. "This is me," she said quietly. Not a question. My pencil froze mid-stroke. "Amanda, I can explain. The way she organizes books by smell and color, her midnight baking habits, the thunder scene." Her voice cracked slightly. "You've been drawing us." I stood up, heart pounding. "I changed the details. Nobody else would know." "I'm not worried about others knowing," she interrupted, stepping closer. "I'm trying to understand if this is just artistic inspiration or—" She gestured between us, leaving the question hanging. The tension that had been building since that thunderstorm night crackled in the air. I opened my mouth to respond, but the doorbell rang. Delivery person with her bookstore's new shipment. The interruption broke the moment. Amanda disappeared to sign for the packages, leaving me standing in the kitchen, surrounded by evidence of my feelings scattered across dozens of manga pages. Later that day, I visited her bookstore, hoping to clear the air. I found her arranging a display of my manga, including the latest volume that had sparked our morning confrontation. "It's our bestseller," she said without turning around, sensing my presence. "Funny how readers can see what's real, even in fiction." I moved closer, watching her hands smooth the covers. "Amanda, about this morning." She turned suddenly, and we were inches apart. Her eyes searched mine, and I forgot every carefully planned explanation. "The way you draw her looking at the artist," she whispered. "Is that how you see me looking at you?" The store's bell chimed as customers entered, forcing us apart. Amanda plastered on her professional smile, but her hands shook as she welcomed the newcomers. I retreated to my studio, throwing myself into work. But every line I drew seemed to lead back to her, the curve of her smile, the way she tucked hair behind her ear when nervous. That evening, I found a note slipped under my door. Inside was a page from my manga, the scene where the bookstore owner realizes her feelings for the artist. Amanda had written in the margin, "Art imitates life." I sat at my desk, staring at her handwriting until the sun set. My phone buzzed with messages from my editor about the manga's success, but all I could think about was the way Amanda had looked at me in the bookstore, like she was seeing every emotion I'd hidden in my art. In my latest sketch, the characters finally acknowledged their feelings. But in real life, we danced around each other in our shared space, both afraid to be the first to turn art into reality. That night, I heard Amanda pacing in her room, probably processing everything. I sat at my drawing table, pencil hovering over paper, wondering if I'd ruined everything by letting my heart spill onto the pages. The manga had become a mirror, reflecting feelings we'd both tried to ignore. Now that the mirror had cracked, what would we see in the fragments? Amanda's bookstore had never been so crowded. My manga signing event had drawn hundreds of fans, many clutching well-worn copies of Midnight Pages. The line stretched around the block, and I could feel Amanda's presence behind me as I signed copy after copy. "Your characters feel so real," a young fan gushed. "Especially the bookstore owner. She's like someone you'd actually fall in love with." I felt Amanda shift behind me, her hand briefly touching my shoulder. The casual contact sent shivers down my spine, and I nearly smudged my signature. Everything was going smoothly until a sharp-eyed fan named Melissa lingered at the signing table, glancing between Amanda and my manga pages with growing awareness. Oh my gosh, she whispered, eyes widening. She's your inspiration, isn't she? Eyes widening. She's your inspiration, isn't she? Your roommate? Her voice carried just enough for nearby fans to hear. Amanda froze mid-coffee refill. I fumbled my pen, trying to maintain composure. The characters are fictional, I said firmly, but Melissa's knowing smile told me she wasn't convinced. Within hours, online forums exploded with speculation. Fans who'd visited the bookstore started posting side-by-side comparisons of Amanda and the manga character. Our carefully maintained professional distance crumbled under the weight of viral theories. Have you seen this? Amanda asked that evening, showing me a forum thread titled Real-Life Romance Behind Midnight Pages. Her hand trembled slightly as she held her phone. We can deny it, I offered weakly, but we both knew the resemblance was undeniable. The situation escalated when Melissa, now our most dedicated stalker, caught Amanda bringing me lunch during a drawing session. The photo she snapped, Amanda tucking hair behind my ear as she leaned over my work, went viral in the manga community. Your living arrangement is affecting the store's reputation, Amanda's assistant manager warned her. Some conservative parents are questioning our family-friendly status. I found Amanda stress-baking at midnight, surrounded by enough muffins to feed an army. Maybe I should move out, I suggested, heartbreaking at the thought. She whirled around, flour on her cheek. Is that what you want? No, I admitted. But I never meant to complicate your life like this. My life was perfectly uncomplicated before you, she said softly, and perfectly empty. The next day, during a routine book signing, an elderly customer confronted Amanda. I've been coming here for years, she declared, but I can't support a business that promotes this kind of relationship. I watched from across the store as Amanda straightened her spine. Then I suggest finding another bookstore, she replied, voice steady but eyes glistening. That evening, we sat among towering stacks of books, shoulders touching. I'm sorry, I whispered. The manga, the fans, the speculation, it's all my fault. Stop apologizing for creating something beautiful, she said. Besides, they're only seeing what's already there. My heart stopped. What do you mean? But before she could answer, her phone rang. Her parents, calling about the online rumors. She took the call in her room, leaving me to wonder if I'd imagined the weight of her words. Later, I found a new sticky note on my drawing table. It was a page from my manga where the characters finally acknowledged their feelings, but Amanda had added her own dialogue. Sometimes art tells the truth before we're ready to say it. I stared at her handwriting until it blurred, aware that we were approaching a point of no return. The line between art and reality had become so thin, it was barely visible anymore. Outside my window, I could hear fans still lingering near the bookstore, hoping to catch a glimpse of the real-life romance they'd read between my manga's lines. Little did they know, the true story was still being written, one careful moment at a time, in the quiet spaces between fiction and truth. I never expected jealousy to feel like a physical pain. Yet here I was, watching through my studio window as Amanda climbed into someone else's car, a sophisticated publisher who'd been pursuing her for weeks. It's just business, Amanda had said, adjusting her dress nervously. Sarah's interested in opening a manga section in her bookstore chain. But Sarah's lingering touches and appreciative glances told a different story. My pencil snapped as I tried to sketch, dark lines cutting across the page like my scattered thoughts. The manga chapters I produced that week were notably darker. My editor called them emotionally raw and devastatingly beautiful. My characters faced separation, miscommunication, and the agony of watching someone you love smile for someone else. These pages are soaked in heartache, Amanda commented one evening, finding me surrounded by crumpled sketches. Are you okay? I couldn't tell her that each sketch featured her smile, but directed at someone else. Just exploring different emotions, I mumbled. She lingered in my doorway. Sarah asked me out. Properly this time. My heart stopped. Oh? I managed, staring intently at my drawing board. I said yes. The silence that followed felt endless. I added another shadow to my sketch, trying to hide how my hand shook. That's great, I lied, each word tasting bitter. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of Amanda getting ready for her date had been torture. The soft clicks of heels, the faint scent of perfume, the gentle closing of the front door. I drew until my hand cramped, filling pages with everything I couldn't say. Around midnight, I heard her return. Her footsteps paused outside my studio. Genevieve? she called softly. Are you still up? I turned to find her in my doorway, makeup slightly smudged, looking devastatingly beautiful and somehow lost. How was your date? I asked, hating how much I needed to know. She stepped into my studio, closing the distance between us. I couldn't stop thinking about your manga, she said instead of answering. About us. Amanda. All evening I kept comparing her to the way you see me in your art, the way you see me every day. Her voice cracked slightly. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. How do I see you? Like this, she whispered, picking up my latest sketch, her face rendered in loving detail, eyes filled with an emotion I'd been too scared to name. Something snapped inside me. I see you exactly as you are, I said, stepping closer. Beautiful, complicated, perfect. Genevieve, she breathed, and then suddenly we were kissing. It was nothing like I'd drawn in my manga. It was better, real, electric. Her hands tangled in my hair as mine found her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, and somehow we ended up against my drawing table, scattering sketches like autumn leaves. When we finally broke apart, breathing heavily, I rested my forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that since the thunderstorm, she confessed. I've been drawing it since we met, I replied. What followed was both more and less than I'd ever dared to draw, tender touches, whispered confessions, and a passion that left us both breathless. In the soft glow of my desk lamp, we finally turned subtext into text, art into reality. Morning found us tangled together on my studio couch, surrounded by scattered drawings. Amanda traced lazy patterns on my arm while I sketched her in the early light. You know this changes everything, she murmured. I know, I replied, adding the soft smile that only I got to see now. I'm counting on it. She picked up one of the fallen sketches, two women finding each other despite everything. Your next chapter's going to be interesting. I kissed her shoulder, feeling her shiver. Our next chapter, I corrected. Outside, the world was waking up, unaware that in a small studio in Bakersfield, art and life had finally merged into something better than fiction. The photos hit social media like a tsunami. Someone had captured our kiss through the studio window, me and Amanda, silhouetted against my drawing lamp, lost in our own world. Within hours, the manga community erupted. I can't believe it's real, fans squealed online. The artist and the bookstore owner. Others weren't so supportive. My publisher called first thing in the morning, voice tight with concern. Sales are fluctuating, she said diplomatically. Some retailers are threatening to pull your manga from their shelves. Maybe we should release a statement? I glanced at Amanda, who was making coffee in one of my oversized t-shirts, her hair gloriously messy. No statements, I replied firmly. My personal life isn't up for debate. But reality had other plans. The local news picked up the story, painting it as either a charming real-life romance or a scandalous revelation, depending on their angle. Customers started coming to the bookstore just to gawk. Then came the call that made Amanda's face turn pale, her parents. They saw the article, she whispered, clutching her phone. They're driving up from San Diego, now. I reached for her hand, but she was already pacing, running fingers through her hair. They're very traditional, she explained, voice shaking. They always wanted me to marry some nice man and take over Dad's business, instead of opening a bookstore. We'll face them together, I offered. She gave me a sad smile. No, I need to do this alone. I spent the next few hours drawing frantically, trying to quiet my anxiety. Around noon, I heard voices from the living room. Amanda's parents had arrived. This is just a phase, her mother's voice carried through the walls. Think of the family reputation. It's not a phase, Mom, Amanda replied, stronger than I expected. I love her, and the bookstore is my life. Love her? Her father scoffed. You've thrown away everything we wanted for you, and now this? I sat at my drawing table, pencil hovering uselessly over paper, heartbreaking as I listened to Amanda defend our relationship, her choices, her life. If you continue this lifestyle, her mother said, we'll have to distance ourselves. The silence that followed was deafening. Then distance yourself, Amanda finally responded, voice thick with tears but unwavering. Because I'm not giving up either. I heard the front door slam, then quiet sobs from the living room. When I found her, she was curled up on the couch, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Maybe I should move out, I suggested, heart-shattering. Give you space to fix things with your family. Amanda sat up, eyes red but fierce. Don't you dare, she said. They'll either accept us or they won't, but I'm not losing you too. That evening, we received notice that several conservative bookmark clubs had canceled their orders. Amanda's assistant manager resigned, citing moral concerns. This is affecting your business, I said, watching her sort through cancellation emails. Your life. She turned to me, determination written across her face. You know what? Let it affect things. Let's affect things. Maybe it's time for change. We stayed up late, brainstorming ways to transform the crisis into opportunity. Amanda suggested expanding the LGBTQ section, hosting inclusive author events. I started sketching promotional artwork. We could make the store a safe space, she said, excitement replacing fear in her voice. Something meaningful. Later, curled together in bed, she traced the outline of my face. You're worth it, she whispered. All of it. I pulled her closer, knowing tomorrow would bring more challenges, more judgment, more losses, more difficult choices. But feeling her heartbeat against mine, I understood what my manga had been trying to tell me all along. Sometimes the best stories are the ones brave enough to be real. Outside our window, Bakersfield's lights twinkled, indifferent to the small revolutions happening in a bookstore owner's heart, in an artist's studio. In the space between fiction and truth where love dares to speak its name. The morning Amanda transformed her bookstore window display changed everything. Gone were the conventional bestsellers, replaced by a rainbow of diverse literature. In the center, my manga stood proudly displayed, alongside a hand-painted sign, Love is love, stories are stories. You're sure about this? I asked, watching her arrange the books with determined precision. She straightened up, the morning sun catching her face. Never been more sure of anything, she replied, then kissed me right there, in full view of passing customers. The response was immediate and polarizing. Some regular customers stormed out, muttering disapproval. But for every person who left, 2 new ones appeared, drawn by the bold statement and inclusive atmosphere. A teenage girl approached Amanda one afternoon, clutching my manga. My parents don't know I'm gay, she whispered. Your store. It makes me feel less alone. I watched from my usual corner as Amanda hugged the girl, her eyes meeting mine over the teenager's shoulder. In that moment, I fell in love with her all over again. Our supporters rallied fiercely. Local LGBTQ groups organized flash mobs outside the store. Online manga communities launched campaigns to boost sales. Even some competing bookstores sent messages of solidarity. Then came the unexpected email from Amanda's youngest sister, Sarah. Mom and Dad won't talk about you at dinner, she wrote. But I've been reading your girlfriend's manga, The Love Story. It helped me understand. I miss you, sis. Amanda cried when she read it, clutching my hand. One person at a time, she whispered. That's how change happens. The store became more than just a bookshop. It transformed into a sanctuary. Amanda started a reading group for LGBTQ youth, while I offered free art workshops. The walls filled with customer artwork and stories of coming out, finding love, being brave. One quiet evening, as we were closing up, an elderly man entered. I recognized him as a longtime customer who'd stopped coming after our relationship went public. I've been doing some thinking, he said slowly. My granddaughter, she came out last month. Your store helped her find courage, maybe. Maybe I was wrong. Amanda's hand found mine as she replied, Would you like to join our Sunday book club? We're discussing families and acceptance next week. The man nodded, tears in his eyes. Later that night, in our apartment, Amanda pulled me close. The moonlight painted silver streaks in her hair as she whispered, Thank you for making me brave. You were always brave, I corrected, tracing her jawline. I just drew what I saw. Our lips met softly at first, then with increasing urgency. Clothes fell away as we celebrated our small victories, our shared strength, our love that had grown stronger through adversity. In the gentle darkness, we wrote our own story, one touch at a time. Morning found us tangled in sheets, my sketchbook nearby filled with intimate drawings of quiet moments. Amanda's peaceful sleeping face, her hand curled around her coffee mug, the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't watching. You know what? She mused, reading the latest sales figures. We're actually doing better now than before. Authenticity sells. Speaking of authenticity, I said, showing her my latest manga draft. The characters had evolved, becoming bolder, more open about their love. Think it's too much? She traced the panels with gentle fingers. It's perfect. It's us. A text from her sister interrupted the moment. Parents asked about you today. Dad actually looked at your store's website. Baby steps? Amanda's smile could have lit up the whole city. Sometimes, she said, standing your ground means the world shifts to meet you. Outside, the morning crowd gathered for another day at the bookstore. Among them, I spotted familiar faces, the teenage girl, now proudly holding hands with her girlfriend, the elderly man bringing his granddaughter, even some former critics, drawn back by curiosity or change of heart. Ready to face another day? I asked, watching Amanda prepare for opening. She pulled me in for a quick kiss. With you, always. We unlocked the doors together, stepping into the light of a new day, our love story continuing to unfold like pages in a well-loved book. My manga series took an unexpected turn after Amanda and I went public. The characters grew bolder, their love story more nuanced, threading through themes of family acceptance, societal pressure, and the courage to be authentic. Critics called it groundbreaking. I called it living. Your work has evolved, my editor noted during our video call. There's a raw honesty that wasn't there before. I glanced at Amanda, who was arranging books nearby, humming softly. I found my truth, I replied simply. The new chapters poured out of me, scenes of quiet domesticity, passionate declarations, and the small battles fought daily by those who choose love over convention. Each page was infused with our real experiences, transformed but truthful. You drew our first kiss, Amanda observed one evening, looking over my shoulder at fresh panels. But you made it rain instead of having it in your studio. Artistic license, I teased, pulling her down for a real kiss. The manga's success brought unexpected opportunities. Publishers wanted spin-off series, merchandise deals, even movie rights. But it was the letters that meant the most, hundreds of them, from readers sharing their own stories of love and courage. Amanda's bookstore became the heart of our growing community. We hosted author readings, art workshops, and support groups. The walls, once lined with bestseller lists, now showcased local LGBTQ artists and writers. Remember when we worried this would ruin the business? Amanda laughed, surveying the packed store during a weekend event. Now we need a bigger space. Our personal life bled beautifully into my art. The manga's protagonists faced similar challenges: conservative family members, professional setbacks, public scrutiny. But like us, they emerged stronger, their love deepening through adversity. One afternoon, while sketching at my usual spot in the store, I overheard a teenage couple discussing my latest chapter. See? One girl whispered to the other. They made it through everything. Maybe we can too. Amanda found me crying over my drawing board that evening. Happy tears? She asked, wrapping her arms around me. We're making a difference, I managed. Actually helping people. The manga industry noticed too. My unconventional approach to romance storytelling sparked discussions about representation and authenticity. Other artists began incorporating more diverse relationships in their work. You've started a movement, my publisher declared. But I knew the truth. Love had started it. I was just lucky enough to capture it on paper. Amanda's influence on my creativity became undeniable. She'd leave sticky notes with story ideas on my drafts, suggest plot twists during our morning coffee, even pose for reference sketches, though those stayed private. Draw me like one of your manga girls, she'd tease, striking dramatic poses until we both dissolved into laughter. Our apartment above the bookstore became a creative haven. Art supplies mingled with books, draft pages scattered among coffee cups and love notes. Even our arguments found their way into the manga, transformed into powerful scenes of growth and understanding. Late one night, as I worked on a particularly emotional chapter, Amanda brought me tea and stayed to watch me draw. It's strange, she mused. Seeing our life turned into art, then watching that art touch other lives. I added the final touches to a panel, 2 women standing against the world, hands clasped, unafraid. Art imitates life imitates art, I replied. It's all connected. She leaned down to kiss my temple. Speaking of connections, my sister wants to visit next week. Says she's ready to see our life firsthand. The news sparked another story idea and I quickly sketched it out. Family reconciliation, bridges rebuilt, love expanding its circles. You're doing it again, Amanda smiled. Turning our moments into manga magic. Can't help it, I shrugged. You make everything feel like a story worth telling. Outside, the city hummed with nightlife, but in our cozy space above the bookstore, we were writing our own narrative, one page at a time. My latest manga volume lay open on the desk, its pages filled with the kind of love that changes worlds, both on paper and in reality. Ready for our next chapter? Amanda asked, eyes twinkling. I pulled her closer, thinking of all the stories still waiting to be told. With you, always. The email from the International Manga Association arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. My series Midnight Pages had won their prestigious Excellence Award, the first LGBTQ romance to receive this honor. They want you to give a speech at the ceremony, Amanda said, reading over my shoulder. Her hand squeezed mine excitedly. The ceremony was scheduled for next month in Los Angeles. As I drafted my acceptance speech, memories flooded back. That fateful flight where we met, the thunderstorm that nearly brought us together, the kiss that finally did. I'm dedicating this to you, I told Amanda that evening. You're the heart of every page. She looked up from her book, eyes shining. You're sure? It's quite public. I'm done hiding our love, I replied. Besides, everyone already knows you're my muse. The surprise came 3 days before the ceremony. Amanda's mother called, their first direct contact in months. We saw the news about your award, she said hesitantly. Your father and I, we've been reading your manga, trying to understand. Amanda's hands trembled as she held the phone. And? We'd like to attend the ceremony, her mother said softly. If you'll have us. The day of the ceremony, Amanda's parents arrived early. Her father looked uncomfortable in his suit, but he shook my hand firmly. The way you draw my daughter, he said gruffly, with such respect and love. It helped us see things differently. Amanda's mother hugged us both, tears in her eyes. We were wrong, she whispered. Can we start over? The ceremony itself passed in a blur of lights and applause. But when I reached the podium, everything crystallized. Amanda sat in the front row, between her parents, all of them beaming. Love stories come in many forms, I began, my voice steady. But the best ones are those that change us, challenge us, make us brave enough to be ourselves. As I spoke about representation, acceptance, and the power of authentic storytelling, I watched Amanda's father reach for her hand. Her mother was openly crying now, nodding at my words. This award belongs to everyone who's ever fought for their truth, I continued, but especially to the bookstore owner who showed me that real love is better than any story I could draw. The standing ovation was thunderous, but I only saw Amanda's smile, bright as sunrise. Later, at the reception, her parents surprised us again. We're renovating the guest room, her mother announced, for when you both visit. Amanda's sister whooped with joy, while her father added gruffly, your manga helped us talk to the neighbors about all this. Turns out their son is gay too. The celebration continued at our bookstore, where loyal customers had organized a surprise party. The walls were decorated with fan art, and someone had made a cake featuring the manga's cover. Remember when we worried about losing customers? Amanda laughed, surveying the packed store. Now we're changing minds one book at a time. Her parents watched us throughout the evening, their expressions softening as they saw how the community embraced us, how naturally we fit together. You make her happy, her father said quietly, catching me alone. That's what matters most. Late that night, after everyone left, Amanda and I slow danced between the bookshelves, my award glinting on the counter. Think we changed some minds today? She murmured against my neck. We're changing the world, I replied, one panel at a time. She pulled back to look at me, eyes bright with tears and joy. Draw this moment, she whispered. I want to remember it forever. I already was, in my mind, sketching the soft lights, the shadows of books around us, the love that had grown from chance to choice to triumph. Outside, the city celebrated with us, its lights twinkling like stars, while inside our bookstore another chapter of our story unfolded, more beautiful than anything I could have drawn. 1 year after our first meeting, I found myself on the same flight to Bakersfield, same seat, but this time with purpose rather than panic. Amanda sat beside me, flipping through my sketchbook, unaware of the ring box burning a hole in my carry-on. Remember when you helped gather my scattered artwork? I asked, watching her profile against the window. She smiled, threading our fingers together. Best mess I ever cleaned up. The proposal plan was hidden in plain sight, a special manga chapter I'd been working on secretly for months. Each page chronicled our journey, the thunderstorm, the first kiss, the challenges we'd faced together. New story concept? Amanda asked, noticing me sketching. Something like that, I replied, adding final touches to what looked like a regular page, but would soon become much more. Halfway through the flight, just as we'd reached cruising altitude, I handed her the completed pages. Mind giving me feedback on this draft? She began reading, her expression softening at the familiar scenes. Then she reached the last page, where the manga version of us stood in this exact airplane, and the artist character pulled out a ring. Genevieve? Amanda's voice wavered as she looked up from the page to find me holding the actual ring. Life's better than any manga I could draw, I said softly. Marry me? Her yes was lost in the applause from surrounding passengers, but I felt it in her kiss, tasted it in her happy tears. Back in Bakersfield, we transformed the bookstore into something new, a manga-themed bookshop cafe where stories of all kinds were celebrated. The walls showcased local artists alongside established names, and our reading corner became famous for its inclusive romance section. Remember when we worried about acceptance? Amanda mused one evening, watching a young couple share their coming-out story at our weekly community meeting. I pulled her closer, remembering our own journey. Now we're building acceptance. The manga industry had evolved too. My series inspired a wave of authentic LGBTQ storytelling, and our bookstore became a launching pad for emerging voices. Think we changed the world? Amanda asked, straightening a display of my latest volume. We're still changing it, I replied, sketching her for the 1,000th time, still finding new details to love. Our wedding plans remained deliberately undefined. We were too busy living our story to rush its next chapter. The bookstore thrived, my manga reached new audiences, and our home above the shop filled with more love and art each day. One quiet morning, as sunrise painted Bakersfield in gold, I found Amanda reading our story to a group of teenagers, her voice bringing the words to life. She looked up, catching my eye, and smiled that smile that still made my heart skip. I settled at my usual drawing spot, pencil moving across paper, capturing this moment and 1,000 possible futures. Our story had no neat ending, no final panel, just endless possibilities, like blank pages waiting to be filled. What are you drawing now? Amanda asked later, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Us, I replied, showing her the sketch, 2 women surrounded by books and art, their story continuing beyond the page's edge. Always us. She kissed my temple, understanding what I meant. Some love stories don't need endings because they're always beginning again, evolving, growing like the pages of an endless manga. Outside our window, Bakersfield stretched toward the horizon, full of untold stories. Inside, we had created our own universe of acceptance, creativity, and love. A living story that would keep unfolding, panel by panel, day by day, forever. Ready for our next chapter? I asked, taking her hand. Amanda smiled, and in that smile, I saw all our future adventures. With you? Always. And so our story continued, not with the end, but with to be continued. Because the best love stories never really end, they just keep adding new pages.